Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. Today we have a very special treat for you. We are going to be covering the director from his very own studio called Groundbreaking Games, which is known for really only two things. The first of which is Doom, the Definitive Edition, which came out on the TurboGrafx May 1st, 1994. Today we're going to take a deep dive into their newest release, Resident Evil Day. Today I'm going to be meeting the founder and the genius behind Groundbreaking Games. He is the last member of the studio and the sole contributor to Resident Evil Day, which on its own shattered an amazing record by selling 15 million copies on its first day of sale. However, since then has yet to sell a single copy. It holds the lowest Metacritic score ever recorded at -1. So, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to finally be able to talk to you in person.
Me too.
Are you ready to talk about Resident Evil Day?
I am excited to talk about Resident Evil Day. You are the first person I've been able to talk to this in years.
I'm flattered. I'm so excited. So let's start with the figures.
Okay.
All right. You had a great launch.
Fantastic.
First day, 15 million units sold.
Record breaking.
Record breaking back in 2020. Now, the interesting part about that is now you haven't sold a single copy since then. What are your thoughts on that?
Flew too close to the sun, to be honest. I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes you create something so amazing, so brilliant, that it burns out within an instant. It's like creating a star, but there's like too much, right? And so it just all like...
That's an interesting take for sure, especially since right now it has the lowest score on Metacritic.
That's right.
-1.
That's right.
How?
Well, so I don't know if you're a programmer. I've done a lot of programming. We think that there's some kind of statistical error or something somewhere with a variable where it was just so good. I mean, 15 million units first day that it just like rolled over.
Rolled over.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, certainly that's been known to happen.
Right. I would have a hard time believing that anyone who has played the game would rate this a -1, to be honest.
And you've played the game, right?
Yeah, I made it.
That's a fair point. So, well, let's get into the game itself. I have more than a few questions. Let's start off with the very beginning.
Okay.
You've got the first boss of the game, Necro Hitler the Second.
The second.
Yeah. What happened to the first one? Why are we on 2?
Well, I mean, if you read a history book, I mean, Hitler died.
Right. So Necro Hitler 2 is actually Hitler 2.
So he's like Hitler the Second. I didn't design the boss, so I don't know where the name came from, but I think that was the general kind of gist of things was, you know, it's the second, he's Hitler's son or something like that, but he's dead. He's undead. That's why he's Necro.
Okay. The logic seems right. Sound. Now, the interesting thing about that boss fight is that it's done exclusively with grenades.
Right.
Now, I have a question about the UI.
Shoot.
What was the decision behind making it, or how did the decision come that every time you throw a grenade, there had to be a pop-up telling you where it was bound?
So we found in playtesting that sometimes people struggled after throwing the first grenade, sometimes after throwing the 5th grenade. So there were times where it was necessary to have it in there. You know, sometimes on the 10th throw, you're still getting the tutorial prompt, you know, press G to throw the grenade. And it's necessary. There's some people that it takes them a good amount of time to really get it. There were people who would get into the boss and still didn't know how to throw the grenades. I don't get it.
You'd think after 25 tries.
You would think.
Wow. I cannot believe that it was that simple. You know? You just want to make sure everybody has the opportunity.
It's all about inclusivity.
Well, along that note, we get into the introduction of the big baddie, if you will.
Okay.
Right? Ultra Umbrella Corps.
Right.
Where does their origin start? Where does Umbrella end? You know?
So it's been a few years since I've played the game.
Okay.
But as I seem to recall, Brendan, who was the one who had designed this, he designed that particular cutscene and did a lot of the writing for that part of the game, specifically that cutscene. But he said that I think they came from like Antarctica or somewhere like that, and that we had to make it clear to the viewer, the player, that it was definitely not the old Umbrella Corp, right? It was the new one that was better. Like they're the Ultra version.
Ultra.
Yeah,
Umbrella.
it's like they're like souped up. They're like coked up. It's like these guys have had like a monster.
Well, along that point, why do we never see them in the game?
So let me. You ever worked in the games industry before?
Well, that's why I'm here. Find out more about it.
So most games are given quite a large budget, right? And we had budgeted for quite a lot of things, given that we were contracted to make a mainline Resident Evil game.
Yeah.
But when the funding finally came through, it seemed like maybe there was a little less than they told us, maybe a couple zeros dropped somewhere. So we had to kind of cut some of the people who had done some of the writing.
The more we talked, the more I came to see just how detrimental cutting costs can be to a development cycle. As I was shown later, it was an uphill battle from the start. The difference between what was promised and what was delivered cemented the fate of these poor developers. Well, following that, we come into possibly our most controversial boss that's in this game, and that is Chef Boyardee.
Oh, not the one I thought you were going to say, but yeah.
Chef Boyardee. He's,
Right.
I believe, the second to last boss, give or take.
Third boss in, I believe. So
Yeah.
like halfway through the game.
Yeah. So, what was the decision that had to come about making this character? Keeping him in the game? Because there's been a lot of flack online about how he is, how do I put this? A little bit on the wrong side. He's spicy, if you will.
I could see how you'd think that. So here's the thing. The Italy level was designed by a man named Jay, right?
Okay.
Who was one of the first people to join our project. He was a 20-year industry veteran.
Wow.
This guy knew how to make games.
Yeah.
But halfway through the project, it became very clear that it just wasn't working out between us. He was asking questions like, hey, when are we going to get paid? And that's a valid question, but we're working for a major studio. Just, they'll pay us. Just keep going. And he didn't like working under that pressure, so he was let go from the company. Unfortunately, we kind of learned only at the last second that he wasn't done with his level, so we had to call him back in, and we worked with him remotely from his house in Spain where he lives now, and he gave us a product that I'm not happy with, but again, you got to make sacrifices and go with what you got. So I think he was a little disheartened with the company and maybe didn't give his best effort. But I don't think it was as bad as most people make it out to be.
It's got a 5-minute mandatory section to create a pizza
Well,
and full of horrible stereotypes.
4 minutes, 33 seconds on the speed run. But yeah, it's, suffice to say, it could be that. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's not the most controversial part about this game.
You're right.
The boss, yes.
Yeah.
However, just after that boss, we have the level in Nepal.
Right.
And of course, that's got the unskippable 90-minute cutscene with 6 QuickTime events that are sprinkled through it.
That's right.
Please enlighten me on what the thinking and rationale was behind including that in this game.
Nepal was my baby. It was the one level that I got to design and do everything that I wanted in. And during the design process, as normally happens, we brought in a bunch of interns to kind of be in the writer's room with me. And when I say we, I mean me, basically, like the office I showed you earlier.
Right.
So we'd come in, we'd, hang out, play some games, make some jokes. And one person saw my collection of videos that we used to make when we were kids, and when we were a little bit older, actually. We had made some instructional videos. One was for a forklift, one was for a gun safety one, which you're now probably very familiar with. And he joked with me, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we put it in the game? And I thought about it, and I said, yes, that would be hilarious. So we did. But the funniest part about it for me is that it's not technically unskippable. There is like a hard-coded way to skip the game, to skip the cutscene. Mostly because we found during playtesting it became incredibly inconvenient to have the playtesters play through the whole thing again. And it was basically a giant waste of time from a financial perspective. But we didn't want to get rid of it because it was a funny joke. People still liked it. It's just some people felt it was unnecessary after a few times, and so we did hard code it's like Control X, F1, F10. If you ever want to skip it, that's how you do it, but you have to turn on debug mode. Yeah. Sorry, what was the question again?
So let's talk dev kits. During the interview, I actually got to try one of the dev kits used for Resident Evil Day. It was really cool, and definitely different than what I was expecting. I've seen a lot of dev kits over the years, and out of all of them, this one was the most unique, so to speak. It included a lot of cool features, a fair chunk of which I didn't even recognize. It was fascinating to see how ambitious this project was in the early days. Well, that is truly fascinating to get your piece about it. Now, I believe this is about where we have to wrap it up. Mm-hmm. So I have to say thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us to ask you all these questions. And again, Resident Evil Day.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal game. So there you have it, folks. We got to take a glimpse behind the curtain at Groundbreaking Games. To answer those burning questions about the atrocity that is Resident Evil Day. Hopefully we can see something else from the studio that's fun. Join us next week as we have Banana Manian featuring the man himself, John Cena. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.